I'm inspired by nature, and today I am going to try to come up with a color palette that matches this dried hollyhock. This is where I start to play with the color palette and start mixing colors and putting them down to see if I am getting the colors that I want. I'm adding carbon black to cobalt blue to see if it will make the blue that I want. I made that pile of green there, and I am not liking that. And this is a great way to actually tell that before you start putting paint on your canvas, but to see what speaks to you and what doesn't speak to you, because even though I made that green, it doesn't mean that I have to use it. I keep track of the colors that I'm mixing for reference for myself, and then I will start to make a palette. I have palette paper here, and I'm mixing up the colors that I am going to use in the painting. So that first one I make, it's a reference, so then I can look back at it and see out of those colors, what colors did I like and what colors would I like to use. So I pick the colors that I would like to use, and then I think I've said this before in my videos, I usually write something underneath my paintings. And I am in the mountains of Vermont, and it is a winter wonderland up here. I had been out for a beautiful snowshoe earlier, and it was epic, actually. It was just really a beautiful day. I was feeling inspired, and now I'm working with all these warm colors versus the cool colors I was seeing outside. I have a big old crappy brush, is what I call it, and right now I am just trying to get paint on the paper. I could use some of those lines that I've created with my words. If I wasn't sure where to start, I could just start using those as little shapes and put color into the shapes. I am kind of just randomly playing around with the paint here and putting it all over the paper, and I'm making sure to I'm starting with some nice light colors, and then I'll start to add dark in a little bit. It's time to check my palette. So I'll refer back to my palette, look at the colors that are on my painting, and look at my palette and see what's missing. And what do I like? What do I maybe want to bring in? I don't really have any of that red yet, that alizarin crimson. And how's it going? Does it look like my inspiration, or do I need to bring some different colors back in? going to use a palette knife. That'll bring some different texture into the painting. And I'm going to switch up my brush to bring some, some different marks. It just helps. Right next to me, I have a ton of brushes, and I can just reach in there and grab a different one to try to make some different marks on this abstract painting, or some different lines. I definitely like to do these kind of scrubby marks. I call them scrubby with my paintbrush, and then dig back in. So this is a technique you'll see me use over and over because I love it. Kind of having the color that's underneath pop through, putting something either really dark on top of something light, or putting something light on top of something dark and then scratching through. I used an X-Acto blade and I am working on paper, so I just have to be careful and do it lightly. And then I use my palette knife to scratch back through, or I like to use a pencil. So I'll use different instruments, different tools to scratch through and reveal the color underneath. I am putting a lot of layers of paint on here. I just keep going. I want it to be darker. I had wanted the darks to be darker and the lights to be lighter, and I just kept adding paint. Sometimes when in doubt, going bold really helps me to see things. I know I feel like that is Nicholas Wilton advice in the beginning, to go bold with your paintings. And sometimes adding contrast can just help you move a painting along. When in doubt, go bold. My dear friend Jack gave me some soft charcoal that he made himself from willow. And the hollyhock is from his mom's garden. So I thought it would be very appropriate to have some of the charcoal he gave me used in this painting. It's delicious, as I would say, very soft and very dark. And I think it goes with this palette very nicely. So now I'm checking it out. Do I like the color combination? Does it need more? I really like that composition. But what else does it need? Do I need darker? Do I need lighter? Is it inspiring me of the hollyhock? Do I think about that hollyhock when looking at these different little vignettes? So we have the painting as a big picture, which I think when I'm working with my students, sometimes this part can be really hard because they always want to find something or make it look like something, right? You can't just have this pile of stuff on a paper not making any sense. Our brains are like, let me make something out of this. But to just keep going and not worry about it, that it doesn't connect as a whole composition, is okay. I'm thinking about the stuff that I want to pop. So right now I'm adding lighter, brighter colors and making those yellowy, beigey colors really pop. And I'm just kind of pushing that contrast a little bit more. And I know that I'm then going to get out my viewfinder, and if I can get one composition out of this whole sheet of paper that I like, that's a total win. If I can't, that's okay too, because what that says to me is, try it again. See what happens. If I like the color palette. If I don't like the color palette and it's a more difficult color palette for me to work in, then maybe I'll change some of the colors. So I'm just going to add a little more paint, give it a little bit more contrast, and see where that takes me. I've reached the point where I think I'm done. I think I added enough paint and contrast, and I really, really love that composition. And then there's some other ones like, ooh la la, there's some really beautiful things happening in this painting. So what I'm going to do is let it fully dry, and then I'm going to cut it up and add it to my sketchbook. Many times one color palette gets me to another color palette. I'll take the inspiration of the hollyhock, create a color palette that I want to work with, and then work with those colors, and then that'll lead me to another aha moment of, ooh, what if I use this instead of that? I do like this palette. I didn't want to put it on a panel or anything. It's more for me, and when I'm working, sometimes I make stuff just to make stuff, not to let anybody see it, and it goes into my big sketchbook. And that is, in my color sketchbook, are all different paintings like this with the colors that I used. Oh, I ripped this when I was cutting it off the watercolor pad, but I'm going to glue it in my sketchbook, and you won't even be able to tell that it is torn. I have other viewfinders that I create, and many times I'll take the viewfinders and then pick out other little parts and pieces of this painting that I would like to put in my sketchbook. But right now I'm kind of doing it free-handed, free using I was going to say free eyeballing it, but I'm just looking for interesting pieces and parts that I like, and I'm going to cut it up, and then I'm going to add it to my sketchbook. And this palette already has me thinking. I originally wanted to use Payne's Gray, but I didn't have any Payne's Gray. And I used cobalt mixed with carbon black to try to create a blue black. So my brain was already like getting excited at this point of what if I did Payne's Gray instead? So my goal is to put these in my sketchbook and then compare them to a palette, using the hollyhock as inspiration, only having it be slightly different colors, and kind of see which one speaks to me more. So stay tuned for my next video, which will be Hollyhock Take 2, palette number 2, and you'll see how I arrange these in my sketchbook. Don't forget to take my free online color class. Thanks for watching.